And it's recording now. So,
okay.
Hang on a minute.
I should check that it's working.
It is recording because it told me it was.
Okay.
So we'll just get.
Okay.
So we'll just get everybody
I'm on
to
a
mute
Mac,
themselves.
by the way, if that makes any difference.
Doesn't make a difference. So I'll just get everybody to mute themselves if we can.
Yep.
I don't seem to have the ability to do that either. So we have some issues here. Ooh, yeah, I can kind of see everybody. Okay. Anyway, it's recording, so I'll just get started. I'm not sure why it's not showing. What are you guys seeing? You're seeing everybody on like a panel, or?
No, seeing you in the main speaker box and seeing everyone up the top. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, all right, that will just have to do. I'll have to do. So if everyone could just mute themselves, and maybe you could turn your cameras off just to prevent the bandwidth being overly affected. That would be cool. Thanks, everyone. Now it's a bit weird because I can't see anyone, but okay. I'll just trust that you're all there. So today we're doing a little thing called the Path of Joy, and I'll just start by setting the intention. So as Buddhists, our intention, and even if we're not Buddhists, our intention is to be of benefit to all sentient beings. And the best way to do that is to become enlightened ourselves so that we know how to be of benefit and for whom to be of benefit first. So we'll just set the intention that we're here to recognize the true nature of our minds and thus be free of dualistic mind and its attendant disturbing emotions. And once we're in that state of peace, we'll be able to help sentient beings. So we'll just take like maybe 30 seconds or something to set our intention. We won't do a formal prayer or anything, we'll just set our intention and then we'll start. Okay. So, for those of you who are new, my name is Pema. You can also call me Dallas, which is my birth name. I'm the chaplain at the University of Southern Queensland, co-director of Jalü Buddhist Meditation Centre. I've been a Buddhist for about 4 decades, since I was about 11. And I was given blessing to teach in 2006-ish, although I didn't do that straight away. And I just kind of decided to hold off on that for a while. And this particular teaching, the Path of Joy, it comes from the Drukpa Kagyu tradition. In particular, my partner Jamyang, he received this teaching from his Lama. So it's, although that's the way it was transmitted, it is actually quite a universal teaching, and it is based on the 4 immeasurables, which, if you're not aware of those, they are they were taught in the early sutras, and they're considered to be 4 kind of essential and immeasurable qualities that characterize enlightenment, but also are necessary for enlightenment. So on the one hand, they are a description of enlightenment, the 4 immeasurables, and on another hand, they are a roadmap, a pathway. Let's put this down actually. So if you haven't heard of the 4 immeasurables, they are loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. generally speaking, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we engage with these four in that order: loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And in essence, equanimity is enlightenment. So limitless equanimity is enlightenment. There's nothing else that can really describe what enlightenment is, except for the compassionate mind. Get you guys to mute if you can, please. I don't have the button to do it. So this practice, however, doesn't start with loving kindness and compassion, which is how it traditionally is taught. It starts with joy, and the reason being, it's easiest, really. And in our tradition, it's not about uptight striving. It's about relaxing into a natural state. So in the same way that the four immeasurables are four things that we can train in or develop, they are also the characteristics of the enlightened mind already. So I'm always banging on, and those of you who know me will recognize this as very familiar. The true nature of mind has only one real quality, and that is boundless compassion. So, I mean, we talk about, you know, all the boomies and all of these various qualities of an enlightened being, but fundamentally that all can be narrowed down to the essence, which is a mind that is limitlessly compassionate and that recognizes emptiness. So that's all enlightenment is, essentially. So the reason joy is easy is because it's pleasant. It's quite obvious. So, and it's one that no matter how troubled or traumatized we might be, it's one that is beneficial straight off the bat to engage with. So although loving kindness and compassion are really the heart or the essence of dharma, to generate those, if they're not, I mean, they're there in their seed form already, but to generate those in that kind of limitless way is quite effortful, whereas to rest in appreciative joy is effortless. It's quite easy. And this practice, what it does is it encourages us to rest in joy before we do our formal meditation practice. So it twins the two. And the reason for that is because oftentimes we find shamatha, which is silent sitting meditation or calm abiding, we find it a bit of a chore, particularly after the honeymoon period vanishes and before the real accomplishment arrives. So there's a period there where you've got to sit down and meditate, and it can be at turns difficult, boring, challenging, troubling, all kinds of things, or just uneventful. So by teaming resting in joy with the silent sitting meditation, you essentially shortcut the process, because in the end, shamatha leads to profound joy, leads to, in stages, bliss, stillness, and revelation of the true nature of mind, which is a joyful experience. Bliss is also joyful, obviously. So this creates like a shortcut. So the practice of the joy part of the four immeasurables is essentially a shortcut, so that you start to experience joy and associate joy with your practice from the beginning, which means that after the honeymoon period wears off, and once it gets to be difficult or tricky or troubling or challenging, the joy is there to ease you through and to keep you going. So this practice is considered to be good for either beginners or more advanced persons. And it relies on the idea from the early sutras where the Buddha said, without joy there is no enlightenment. So it tells you quite clearly that statement that although Buddhism often gets a bit of a bad rap about being a little bit dark and a little bit focused on things like suffering and the negative aspects of the dualistic mind, actually at the heart of Dharma is joy. and it's essential to practice. A lot of really accomplished masters can be described by that one word, joyful. Relaxed, laugh easily, playful, childlike. These are the qualities of an enlightened being. You know, so Buddhism is not, despite its emphasis on recognizing and not avoiding the suffering of reality, the inconstancy of existence, the unreliability of things, it is also a path of joy. So just read you this little bit here, which is from Jamyang. Joy is the fuel, the nourishment, which helps our practice to grow strong and stable. If we imagine our practice to be like a seedling, joy is the water that helps the seedling to grow. Without joy, the seedling will wither and die. So the thing about the four immeasurables is that although they are contemplations, so the things that we can do with our mind, they're actually only effective when they're felt experiences, so felt in the heart, so, which is true of all practice. Practice should not only be a cognitive endeavor, it should be a felt experience, something that is in the heart, as well as being something that we take into the world with us. So the danger of a largely cognitive kind of a practice is that, you know, we do all this study and we think we're very smart, and we do a little bit of sitting meditation, and then we go out into the world and we are not compassionate or kind in any way, shape or form, which is kind of horrifying to me. So to feel these things in one's heart is the way to ensure that it's changing you, and that it then informs your activity in the world, your activism in the world, your ethical living. So it's really kind of important to make sure that this is a felt experience. And so this practice does that. It gives you a felt experience of appreciative joy, as well as give you some cognitive tips or tools that you can use. And when you team it with silent sitting or shamatha, it strengthens both. So the silent sitting strengthens the joy. Why? Because joy can be a very subtle felt experience. And when the dualistic mind's on and on and on and on about what it wants, what it needs, what it dislikes, what it likes, what it's afraid of, you know, it can silence that felt experience, or not silence it, because that joy is a part of our own nature, so it can't be removed, but it can be obscured. So shamatha produces space in the mind so that that felt experience becomes more vivid. It's an interesting thing, and I think I'm repeating myself here, but these things are our natural state. The mind is naturally lucid, calm and clear and joyful, but it's obscured by all of those disturbing emotions that we have and all the thinking that we identify with and consider to be ourselves. But shamatha calms all that down, and then the natural loving kindness, the natural compassion, the natural joy, they rise or become evident, actually. So, and in the reverse, the joy relaxes the mind. And in our tradition, meditation should not be another, I'm quoting Jamyang Tenphel here, it should not be another effort, another thing that's difficult and hard and that we sit down and force ourselves to do. It should be joyful. The current incarnation of my Lama, there's actually two of them, but one of them said in a teaching recently that really one of the most important things about practice, when he was asked, you know, what's the most important thing? He said to have joyful enthusiasm for the practice, you know, and how do you get that? You know, if it's not there already. Some people, like my partner, are incredibly lucky in that they were born with this. You know, they were born with this joyful enthusiasm for practice. But lots of us were not born with that. We had to cultivate, you know, we had to convince ourselves that this was an important thing to do and we should do this. So if that joyful enthusiasm for practice is not there already, this will give us that. It will link clearly in our mind practice, meditation practice, and joy. So that's why it's kind of important. Now it's really, really simple. It's a shame we're not like in the park where we wanted to do this, but we can do another version of it in a minute after we go through kind of like the how. Then we'll actually do a little bit of a practice. So I'm just watching the time. Essentially, we choose a place, a space, an environment, or an object that elicits joy. The kind of joy we are looking for does not have to be huge. It can be very subtle, you know. It can be just a pleasant, uplifting feeling. It doesn't have to be, yeah. In fact, that kind of exuberant joy is not necessarily great. So you simply choose a place you like to be, the beach, a rainforest, and an outlook, looking at mountains, looking at water, sitting under a tree in the backyard, sitting in your kitchen or your lounge room, looking out the window, looking at a photo of your children, partner, whatever. It doesn't, puppy dog, kitty cat, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you find elicits joy for you relatively easily, you choose that as your thing. So it requires a little bit of self-awareness. You need to look to your experience. What are the things that you go to when you're distressed? What are the things you go to when you are stressed and need to just feel calm? What are the things that you not necessarily do but want to do or wish for or yearn for in your mind? So you choose these things and you simply sit in that place with that object for 10 minutes or so. And just, it's not an analytical thing. You're not analyzing, why do I feel joy? What's the cause of this joy? What's the root of this joy? It's just to feel it. And so what I have suggested to people do before in the past is to, if you're not able to go somewhere, if you have nothing around you, you know, if it's tricky, it's difficult for you because you're having a bad time, you can also use a memory. So you can remember a time in the past where you felt joy. And the trick is not just to remember or just to look. Remember, it needs to be a felt experience. So the one for me that I find is the go-to is I really like trees and forests. So there's a forest in New South Wales that is like my favourite forest. And I like to go there, and it's really beautiful and lovely and cool and just a beautiful place. And whenever I walk into that forest, I feel my entire body relax. I feel enervated by the clear, clean air. I feel comforted by the dappled light and the coolness. And I feel joy. I feel joy in those environments. So for me, if like I'm at work or, you know, stuck on a bus in a traffic jam or something like that, and I want to sit with joy and then go into some meditation, I will just remember that experience of going into the forest and feeling joy. And then you know, close your eyes, and if you're doing this as a memory, close your eyes and you just allow your body to feel that joy. And then you allow that joy to intensify. So it's not like producing or forcing, it's just allowing the mind to settle down so that the intensity of it does naturally increase. And then when you really feel it, and you really feel the joy, you just rest in the joy. Of course it will come and go, that's the nature of the mind. But in the same way that we don't but we don't focus on thoughts as they come and go in the mind. We just let them come and then just let them go again, like waves. They rise, they peak, and they dissipate naturally without us having to do anything. Feeling of joy, because it's a feeling, it will do the same thing. It'll come, it'll peak, it'll dissipate. Then we just gently go back to it, just in a very relaxed, not forced, easy kind of a way. We go back to the joy. So we just remember that moment again, and then the joy rises. We allow it to intensify in our heart. I keep saying the heart because that's kind of important. This sounds a bit hippie, but it's an important energy center and important in terms of meditation. So we just allow ourselves to feel that joy and then rest with it. If you're looking at a view, or if you're at the beach, or if you're in your yard, you know, or you're watching birds fly around, or you're just lying on your back in the yard looking up at the sky, if you find that thought takes you away, you just gently, in the same way that when you're in sitting meditation, you just gently bring yourself back to the object, your chosen object. This also, you just gently bring yourself back. The metaphor I often use is that returning to our object of meditation, or in this case, returning to the joy, should be like remembering that you have a tasty thing to eat. It's not like, oh no, I'm distracted, I've got to get back to my thing. You know, it's, oh yes, there's something really delicious and I'm going to get back to that now. It's a very different attitude. The effort we put in to meditation and to this joy practice is like the effort we put in to doing things that we enjoy. It's relaxed, it's easy, you know. So it shouldn't be tight and strict and forced, you know. Love is not forcible. Compassion cannot be forced. In the same way, joy cannot be forced. You need to relax into it and just allow it to be. Because remember, it is our natural state. The dualistic mind, with all of its hubbub, is not our natural state. The beautiful thing about the dualistic mind, if there is anything beautiful about it, is that it is profoundly impermanent. It is profoundly fluid. So it will rise, it will peak, it will dissolve of its own without us doing anything. That's the really great thing about that. That thing called mind. Okay, so for those of you who are more audio people, who are more interested in sound, you can sit by a stream or just a fountain, a little water fountain, in your house or in the backyard, or you can put on your devices the sound of a stream, the sound of the wind. I am also a bit of an audio person, and I really love the sound of wind in she oaks. If any of you have ever been under a stand of she oaks and the breeze has gone through, it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. So if you're one of those people who's more about sound is more joyful for you, then you can do things like that. You don't have to look at something. It can also be the ear sensation. So it's very personal. It's very much about you being self-aware about what brings you joy, what helps you to rest in joy, and choosing that thing and using that thing to sit in joy. So really, the idea is that we sit in joy, it's not a marathon. In the Dzogchen tradition, of which some of us are lucky enough to belong, short, regular practice sessions are considered better than irregular, lengthy ones, or even obsessive, extreme sporty type things. So it's a very relaxed attitude that we have, but we need to be consistent and persistent. And I'm repeating myself for those of you who know me again. Every single day, preferably at the same time, every single day for a short period of time. And just like quote Jamyang Tenphel again, she's indicated that to do just 10 minutes every single day is better than to do like 3 hours on Sunday, because the mind is a being, is a creature, an entity of habit, you know. So to use that against it is wise. So same time every day, preferably in the same place and the same duration. These things will help. Once it becomes a habit, a lot of the resistance and struggle we have with meditation, it just goes. You know, once it's just a simple habit, you know, and when you team it with joy, it becomes a, you know, a pleasant habit, a very pleasant habit. Okay, so we do that for 10 minutes, and then we simply do shamatha. And again, in our tradition, we prefer short sessions. So we would do, you know, 10 minutes and then have a little break of a couple of minutes and then another 10 minutes if you want. Or if you're new, just start out very small. Hans Dalai Lama said recently, like just 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes a day. Start there. If you really, really can't find any more time, then that's fine. That's enough. That's a place to start. So, and then the reason why the break between the 10 minutes, or if you over time it will become 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, the reason for the breaks is because in the breaks we remain mindful, we remain relaxed, and yet we are open to whatever's happening. There is a tendency when we're sitting on our cushions or in our chairs, you know, wherever we are, to become meditators while we're in the posture and while we're in that place. And as soon as we get up from the cushion or the chair, we're just being whoever, you know, whoever again. The point of the breaks in this style of meditation is that we learn to be mindful while we're not in formal posture and we're not necessarily in our cushion, on our cushion. So the break is really important. So don't think that the break's there because it's accommodating laziness or accommodating our short attention spans or something. It's there for a very important reason, which is to help us to remain mindful in our daily lives as we go about our daily lives. And so in that sense, you know, we have these short breaks, but in time, you know, the break between, say you have a 10-minute morning meditation session and a 10-minute nighttime one, everything in between that becomes a mindful break, you know? So, and so that when we're walking about in our lives, we don't go back to all of our habitual reactions so quickly. All right. So I think we'll have a little bit of a break at this point so people can have water and or other beverages and stretch out and stuff like that, and ask some questions about the joy part, and then we'll do a bit of a sit after this. Does that sound amenable to everybody else? You can speak at this point.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. All right, so we'll have a short break so that we can have water and stuff like that, and then we'll so we'll do like 5-10 minute break, and then we'll come back and I'll answer some questions about the joy part if you have any, and then we'll go into a bit of a sit. We'll actually do the practice. All right. I'm going to mute myself and turn off the camera while I'm having some water and stuff. I just realised that we're recording this break and it'll be very boring in the watching.
So would you like me to stop it?
No, just leave it, just in case we lose the function down the track.
Okay, I'll just keep recording it. I haven't stopped it.
We can just chat if we want, while we're waiting for people to have their drinks and breaks.
Pema, how do I find, I was just starting to investigate, where does the recording go to and how do I?
It goes to me because I'm the boss. It's my account.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll send it to me.
Yep.
It gets stored in Zoom.
Oh, so it gets stored online in Zoom, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a cloud.
Oh, okay, cool. Would you mind just bringing your volume up a pinch?
I think my volume's as high as it can go.
Okay.
I'll scoot closer.
Are you using like a laptop as your microphone?
No, my phone.
Your phone?
Yeah, it's my phone.
Right. So you got the phone on a mic stand or something like that just in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a little bit thin. It'll be all right. Because there won't be any noise floor hardly.
I'm trying to figure this out, how to get it to do what it usually does.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
This is the thing about using a new device rather than testing it out, you know?
Yes.
Hi, Kylie. How you doing, Kylie?
Hey, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. So we've got weird technology things going on here. Well, it's weird for me, but it could just be me that's experiencing weirdness. So I don't know whether or not it's just me or if it's everybody.
Oh, okay. What's going on?
Oh, I can't see a damn thing.
Oh.
I can't see anything. Usually I can see you guys, but I can't see anything.
Oh, well.
Oh, I can see Jack now. Jack's just popped up.
I'll put my video on.
Oh,
Hi.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can, but my it's weird. Whose cat was that?
It's just Evelyn.
Hello. Finding my joy. This is my mantra. Meow.
Oh, it's you.
Okay. All right. Is everyone ready to keep going?
Yes.
Or we've still got people off having breaks?
No, I'm back.
All right. I might just do a roll call, but to do that, I have to get this thing. Hi, Beck. I didn't know you were here, Becky. Becky, I'm sorry, Beck.
Hi.
Did not mean to call you
no,
Becky.
that's okay.
So sorry.
I sort of snuck in a bit late.
I see. I can't actually get the list of who's here up. So.
So you've got me. Hi, I'm Peter. If you don't know me.
Hi, Peter.
Myself, Dallas, Beck, Kerry, Kylie. A person on a telephone, which I don't have their name.
Helen.
Sorry. Yep.
That's Helen. Yeah.
Evelyn, Sharon B, Yeshi, Galina. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Jack, Nikolai, and Tracy.
Okay, cool. Now I know who's here. Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.
I had no idea who was here before. So, Orleans, but Cyclone Delta is bearing down on them. So last time we had the Colorado group couldn't come because it had fires, and this time we have a hurricane. It's just the world is interesting things. All right, so I'll answer questions if you have them. So if you have a question, just pop your camera on and just ask, and I can answer it. If you have any questions, just about the joy stuff. Really? No? It's that simple. I think it is that simple. So one of the things that people sometimes ask, so I'll answer this question in case it's there and people don't want to ask it, is what if you find it really hard to experience joy? That's a surprisingly common question. So, you know, I find it hard to summon joy, or like the world is so awful right now. How am I supposed to summon joy? So I think that because joy is our natural state, this is just what I think, because joy is our natural state, you know, compassion, kindness, joy and equanimity are our natural state. I think it doesn't matter what's going on in the external world. If you simply allow yourself to rest, joy will be there. And if you use some sort of prompt, it will be there. It might not happen quickly or straight away, and it might be somewhat weak at first, but it will happen because it's our natural state. Like, it's almost guaranteed. Now, that being said, if you have like profound depression, clinical depression, or an anxiety disorder or a panic disorder or something like that, then yes, it can be quite tricky, but at the same time, I don't think impossible. So you just have to be aware of what's blocking you. And I think to dwell on things that trigger joy in the past, if you're feeling anxious or depressed or something like that, is a good move. And because that joy is touchable through the memory, you know, it will be easier. That being said, when you're in a state of high anxiety or panic, it's, you know, it's really very difficult. But everyone's anxiety has peaks and troughs. So you pay a little attention to your patterns. You know, when does it peak? When does it, and I know that sometimes there are, you know, particularly intense periods where it seems to all be a peak. But generally, our anxiety and our sadness and our melancholy, they come in peaks and troughs. And so you choose a moment in the trough when the anxiety is at its weakest, when you might feel sort of anxious, but it's not, you know, it's not a panic attack, you know. So you need to be strategic. It's not a word we often use in spiritual domain, but you do need to be strategic. You need to be self-aware. So if you have constant anxiety and or panic and depression, you need to pay attention to your cycles in the day or in the week, and you need to locate, okay, generally speaking, when I first wake in the morning, I'm okay. But one of the differences between situational depression and clinical depression is often people with clinical depression experience that depression early in the morning. So in that situation, it won't be first thing in the morning, it might be late in the afternoon. So just need to be aware. And remember, we don't need long. We need a window of 10 minutes and that's it. So it's not a lot to ask. I think if you try, you'll find that you'll be able to do it if you find it really hard to experience joy. Okay, so if there's no more questions about that, I'll ask again just in case someone's been too.
Can your feeling of joy change over time? Like
It will. Yes, it will. Do you mean the object or the feeling?
The object. Like,
both will. Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, both will change. That's normal. And I know I said the word natural a lot, and I'm not usually a huge fan of that word, but it is natural for the object to change and for the feeling certainly to change. It will, because you're relying on a dualistic thing, you're relying on like an object or a memory, you're relying on something that is that means that you're relying on something that's impermanent, right? So it will, some days you'll have very strong joy and you'll go into your shamatha and it'll be very deep. Other times you'll have very weak joy and you go into shamatha and yet the shamatha is still deep. Sometimes you'll have very strong joy and you're going to shamatha and the shamatha will be weak. You know, you'll be constantly distracted. So that all is good. All of these things are fine because it's that being persistent and being consistent. You just need to always do it. And then in time, you know, like how when you look at weather patterns over a very long period of time, you know, from year to year, it seems like not much has happened. But if you look at over decades and centuries, then you start to see, you know, the peaks and the troughs. But there's a general move, you know. There's peaks and troughs, but there's a general move up. So the same with our practice. There's peaks and troughs, but the general move, if we're persistent and consistent, and when I say persistent, I don't mean forcefully forcing yourself. I mean just to do it with a relaxed attitude every day, basically the same time every day, short sits until you build up, you know, relaxed, not a sort of severe extreme sport attitude. You will notice, even though there are these peaks and troughs, and sometimes there'll be massive dips and other times there'll be massive highs, you know, but overall it will go up. And by up, I mean you'll deepen, your practice will deepen. The mind will still, that stillness itself will produce joy. So you won't need to do the joy exercise at the beginning. You can still do it because it's not bad, it's a good thing. So expect it to change and don't worry about it changing. This is fine. And the changing of the object, you know, is a good idea. So switching it up every now and then, you know, rather than going to the beach, sometimes going somewhere else, or rather than looking at a picture of someone you love, or, you know, you can look at a pet or listen to some whale songs, or whatever it does, whatever is fine. Switching it up is a good thing. It keeps practice fresh. So I might ask you all to now, I'm not going to call on you to tell me, don't worry, it's not high school, to think of something that brings you joy. I know everyone's already got hers snagged. And the thing about this object, right, meditation always needs an object in the same way that the dualistic mind always needs an object, you know, emotions always need an object, right? The thing about this object is that it should be something that is uncomplicated, you know, which is why sometimes a partner or a child or a parent is not a good idea. A picture of them is not a great idea, because those relationships can be complicated, they can be joyful, but they can also be painful. So that's why, generally speaking, some experience with nature is probably the wisest, because it's uncomplicated, unless a hurricane hits, which can happen. Or a flower, you know, something like that. Something that's simple and uncomplicated. And you actually don't want to go for the big attachment experiences, because we're not looking for a feeling of clingy attachment. We're looking for a relaxed experience of joy in the now. So something that Jamyang wrote down here, I will read out. If I can find it. Okay, there's a few lines. So we then simply sit and observe the object of choice for 10 minutes or so. So I've told you that, without analysing or contemplating it. So it's not a contemplative, analytical thing. We simply rest our awareness on the object without clinging to it or grasping at it with our minds. So that's important. So if it's someone for whom we feel a lot of attachment, it might not be a good choice. We just sit and rest the mind at ease on the object in the present moment. So that phrase, rest the mind at ease is from the Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings. And ease doesn't mean loosey-goosey. It means without grabbing. So without judging, without being swept up in thought. At ease, because remember Padmasambhava, who took Buddhism to Tibet in the 750s, he always said that the best meditation posture is whatever's comfortable. These are Dzogchen teachings. The best mantra is silence. The best attitude towards the mind is to simply leave it alone. So to leave it alone doesn't mean to get swept up with thought, right? That's actually to do something. It's to engage with thought, to identify with thought, to actually be thought. So to rest the mind at ease means to not engage, to not identify with thought. So ease sounds like it's like being all loosey-goosey, but it actually means to be somewhat present and to simply not allow the mind to chase stuff. And it's not an act of force, it's just to rest. So I'm repeating myself many times here. So, you know, the natural state of the body is, most of you will know the answer to this because I'm going on about it all the time. Stillness. When we're asleep, what's the body doing? It's still, unless we're twitching around like in that intermediate sleep state. But the natural body when we're deeply asleep, the natural state of the body when we're deeply asleep is stillness. Natural state of the speech, remember when we talk about the body, speech and mind of the Buddha, speech also means energy, that ability to move and communicate and to affect. The natural state of the speech is stillness. The natural state of the mind, you guessed it, stillness. So to rest in ease is to not move. You know, it's, you know, look what I'm doing. The dualistic mind produces all this. The natural state of the mind is lucid, clear, and still. So to rest in ease means to be still. If thoughts come, you know, you just let them come and you just let them go. But we don't cling. We don't pursue. We don't analyze. We don't track back. We don't follow where the thought came from, although that can be a useful tool in some other methods. We just leave it alone. We do nothing with it. So this is really important. And to rest in joy that is actually intrinsic to one's nature, rather than that it's produced, you know, by stuff that we're attached to, is to rest in the kind of a joy without grasping. So it's not a clingy kind of experience. The mind naturally clings because the body, which is designed to produce an experience of self and other through these senses that produce this sense of there's stuff out there and we're here, the mind, which is part of that system, naturally clings. So there will be some clinging, but that's okay. You just let it go. Don't get wrapped up, don't pursue, and in time, you'll be able to sit, rest in joy without pursuing it, without grabbing at it. You'll have some equanimity about it, you know. So this is kind of important. All right, so once we've chosen our joyful experience or joyful object, we're going to do a bit of a meditation. So I'm going to turn the camera off so you just have my voice, so that you're not looking at me and being distracted from your joyful object. Now, those of you who are not familiar with the way we sit with our backs more or less straight. We have our legs crossed underneath us or in lotus position, or if we're on a chair, feet on the floor. The most important thing about our legs is that we feel that they're supporting us, that we feel that our back is supported and we're not using our lower back or our middle back to support us. we need to feel rested and supported, and we're not putting any energy into how we're sitting. Still have a bit of a lingering cough. The second thing is, we, though we want our back to be straight, we don't want it to be tight. So straight yet relaxed. The metaphor used is a guitar string. If a guitar string is too tight, it won't hit the note. If it's too loose, it'll just make an awful noise or no noise. So you want it to be not too tight, not too loose. If you have the tendency of carrying your shoulders high, like if you're sort of a tense, stressed person, you breathe in, roll them back, breathe out and drop them. Hands are on our thighs or knees, palms down, in a position that means that our shoulders are relaxed. Now, with this meditation, you can use eyes closed and think about your joyful experience or your joyful object. Or if you're looking at a joyful object, so if you're looking out the window or you have something in front of you, you can look at that. But the idea about the gaze is that it's relaxed, you're not staring. So, for example, if you wear glasses, you can take them off so that your gaze is a little bit more fuzzy. Or if you need to see, leave them on. Now, the mouth and tongue are relaxed. If you're used to sitting in the Dzogchen style, you can put the tip of your tongue at the top of your palate behind your front teeth and leave your lips just tiny bit open, but in a relaxed way. It shouldn't require any force, but it's totally cool to just leave your lips closed and your tongue loose. That's totally cool too. And we just do what Holland's Dalai calls the tranquilizer, which is our Vajra breathing. Vajra means diamond lightning bolt, which sounds very dramatic, but it simply means to, get into a state of stillness and calm. So the Vajra breath is through the nose, so you breathe in through the nose, more or less a natural pace, but maybe a little slower than your natural pace. Not much of a pause, bit of a pause, and then out through the mouth. And the out breath through the mouth is slower than the in breath. So that's, in time, what you want is slow in breath, kind of to the count of 4, bit of a pause, and then an out breath to the count of 8. But don't count it. Probably shouldn't have said that, because the counting makes it forced. You just, at a kind of a natural pace, breathe in through your nose, a little bit slower than normal. And then you breathe out through the mouth a little bit slower than normal. And in time, both the in breath and the out breath will elongate. And all we need to do is make sure that our out breath is longer than the in breath. That's really it. And that will really relax the body. The mind follows the body and vice versa. So once the body is relaxed, the mind will relax. So we'll do 3 of those breaths. If you're doing it at home on your own, you can do a cycle of 3 of those. So in once, out once, and then a little bit of a break, and then in once, out once, and do 3. So we'll just do 1 this time though. So in through the nose. Short break. Longer out through the mouth. And again. And again. And just relax. Let all your troubles and worries go. Place your awareness on your joy object very gently. If it is a memory, bring that memory to mind. Feel the joy that your object or memory invokes. Feel the joy in your body, wherever it happens to manifest. Don't zoom in or scrutinize it. Just feel it with a gentle awareness. Allow that feeling of joy to grow. Just rest the mind in the experience. As you breathe in, you relax into the joy. As you breathe out, the joy fills you. Just relax and rest in joy. We'll sit for about 5 minutes, beginning now. If you find yourself swept up in thought, just gently bring yourself back to the experience of joy in a relaxed way. Just place your awareness gently on the feeling of joy. Okay. It was about 10 minutes. So now, we'll just rest a minute. And then talk a little bit about Shamatha meditation. Basically, these two things sit together. So, once we have sat with joy for about 10 minutes, then we move on to Shamatha meditation with a little bit of a break in between or immediately. It's okay, it doesn't matter. Most of you should be familiar with Shamatha by this point. So, essentially the same posture, but with the joy. If you just want to lie on your back and look at the sky, fine. You just want to sit in a chair, fine. Whatever is comfortable is really fine. And that's a doctrinal teaching. As Guru Rinpoche said, quite clearly, whatever posture works, whatever is comfortable is fine. Okay, so Shamatha is essentially the same, but the object is different. So in the first part of this practice, the object is joy. That's our meditation object. It's what we're resting our awareness on, what we're resting in. Okay? So with Shamatha or calm-abiding meditation, the object is either, and most commonly, the breath, and that can be the whole experience of breathing. So, a full body experience of breathing. Our awareness is very gently placed on it. And there's a couple of traditional metaphors about how light our awareness, the placement of our awareness on the object should be. And one is like a butterfly landing on a flower. That's very hippie, but it's kind of nice. And the other one is a snowflake landing on the surface of a lake. So just very pretty, very gentle. Okay, so usually it's the breath. It can be a full body experience of breathing, or it can be the breath as it enters and leaves the nose. It's up to you. People who have anxiety and phobias like claustrophobia, cats are being naughty. Focusing on a single point can be a little bit of an issue, so it's sort of a more relaxed, just sort of on the breathing itself, in and out, the movement of it is preferential for them. You can, with Shamatha, sit eyes closed, that's fine. In our tradition, both are acceptable, open or closed eyes. The only benefit, there's a benefit to each. The benefit to eyes closed is it shuts one of the sense doors, obviously. And we are very televisual beings. So we almost intimately identify with what we see. It's a very interesting thing. So to shut that sense door, it can be very helpful in terms of shutting off the things that stimulate thought, stimulate feelings. So that can be helpful. Conversely, in the Dzogchen tradition, the idea is to be open to everything. So we're not renouncing, we're not transforming, we're just being open to things as they are and recognizing the pristine and pure nature of things as they are already, without change, without intervention. Which starts, of course, with our own nature, which is pure and perfect as it is already, without any intervention. So the benefit to having the eyes open is that we're open to everything. We're open to sight, sound, movement, and we become accustomed to being in a state of relaxed, calm awareness with our senses open. I'm not sure if you can see Yeshi, but there he is. He's going to start complaining in a minute. So there is a benefit to both. You just need to do what feels comfortable for you. And often, sometimes people start with their eyes closed and they just naturally open them. Other times people start with their eyes open and they naturally close them. It's fine. Doesn't matter. Whichever is fine. So I won't go into too much detail about Shamatha because I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with it. It's again, back straight, but not tight, not rigid. Hands can be either in this mudra equipoise or equanimity, or palms down on the knees. In our tradition, the Nyingma Dzogchen tradition, it's hands, palms down on the knees, but it doesn't really matter, whatever feels right. Legs in, lotus posture, half lotus posture, crossed or flat on the floor, all are fine. Whatever's comfortable, whatever limits the amount of effort we have to put into the position, the better. Obviously, sitting on a cushion if you're on the floor is wise because it props the body up a little bit and takes pressure off the lower back. I'm often talking about the chin being like the accelerator. So if you find when you're sitting your mind is active, overactive, you just drop the chin a little bit, like a centimetre. If you find that your mind is drowsy, you lift the chin by about a centimetre. You'll find the right place. You know, it needs to also be comfortable. The head is the natural position, like for is usually the head a little bit forward. You know, so it forms kind of a crook. And that's basically. And then in our tradition, we usually put tongue to the palate behind the front teeth, the top front teeth. But this is not essential. It's okay to do whatever's comfortable. Then the attitude is, we're just resting. You know, we're just resting. The body is still, speech is still, mind is crazy, but leading towards still, you know, and we just don't intervene in whatever the mind does. So whenever our mind is distracted by a noise or a sound, or it becomes absorbed in thought, we just gently bring our awareness back to our breath or whatever our object is. If you have your eyes open, you can also use like a pebble or a twig or a crystal, whatever you want, and you just look at it gently, 2.5 arms in front of you, sort of following the line of the nose down. Eyes half lidded is the phrase. So the eyes are sort of, the lids are sort of like that, sort of looking down. So you can have an external object if you want, or you can use a breath. It doesn't matter. Either way works fine. The thing about the benefit to the breath, it's always there. So when we're in the car, on the bus, at work, we can just connect with the breath and immediately connect with the calm and the rest. You know, very easy. The benefit with an object like a stick or a pebble is that when we get to the point where we no longer need an object for meditation, we can rest in the nature of mind without such a thing. We can just not use that anymore. But the breath does come with it everywhere we go. So both are fine, both have benefits. Okay, so I'll just read something here from Jamyang. The result, I had a bit of a cough during the week. And it is lingering. The result of bringing joy into our hearts from the beginning of our practice lives is that in the future, this opens us up to giving rise to the other 4 immeasurables more easily. For most of us, joy is the easiest of the 4 immeasurables to develop, which is why it makes sense to start with it. Once joy becomes a regular experience in our hearts and practice, we then naturally begin to feel loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity arise in our hearts also, and generally in that order: loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity. Joy, coupled with meditation, will allow our hearts and minds to become more open, flexible, warm, and equanimous. To begin with, this may feel like an intellectual, mind-based experience. Over time, however, this experience begins to be felt in the heart. So it really has to be a felt experience. It's really very important. But don't force it. You know, it will get there on its own. So the path, as I mentioned, the path of joy is a shortcut. Buddhist practice naturally leads to joy. So silence in meditation, vipassana, these things lead naturally to joy. So that's where we're headed, you know. But this is a shortcut. And why not take a shortcut, you know, particularly at this time we're in now, when everything is so tricky and difficult in the world. So doing this joy practice teamed with Shamanica meditation or whatever form of meditation we do, it will mean that we get to that place where we're enthusiastically joyful about our practice a lot more quickly. And something that I've noticed since I've been practicing is that people come into the Dharma and practice and then they go, you know, they vanish. A significant number of people start practicing and then stop. And I think, in my humble opinion, that there's 2 reasons for that. number one is they haven't spent enough time on the foundational contemplations. So these are the contemplations that we call the common preliminaries. They're not called common preliminaries because they're common or not important. You know, they're called common preliminaries because they're universally important. Every single person has it in common that they need to do this. You know, so and the one that usually people drop off because they haven't really internalized the truth of impermanence. So that's number one reason why people sort of come. They're passionate for a while, and then they go, you know, because they haven't really spent time with the truth of impermanence and internalized it, felt it. Because the truth of impermanence is deeply motivating. The second reason is there's no joy. There's no enthusiasm, you know. It's all very, and there's a lot of self-loathing, and a lot of, I have to do this because I'm a terrible person, or I have to do this because the world is terrible. That's, you know, that may be true. The world may be a terrible place, and samsara is filled with dissatisfaction and suffering. We know this. But there needs to be some joyful enthusiasm for you to go and stay on the path. And remember, the reason we're doing this is for the benefit of sentient beings. So, which includes ourselves. We wish to be free. Every being wishes to be free. When you ask anyone who can speak, do you want to be happy? They might give a slightly convoluted, complicated answer, but essentially the answer is yes. No one wants to be unhappy, you know. They might say things like, oh, I believe it's impossible to be truly happy. They might say stuff like that, but fundamentally, beings want to be happy. If you ask beings, do they want to suffer? They say no. No, of course not. I don't want to suffer. Those things are the kernel of our true nature. The wish not to be unhappy ourselves, the wish to be happy ourselves, is the kernel of loving kindness, which in its true form is boundless. It's not just about us. It has no limits. It's immeasurable. Thus the four immeasurables. It is. It has no bounds, no limit, and cannot be contained. The desire to, the wish not to suffer, that is the kernel of compassion. At the moment, when we say, I don't want to suffer, I don't want to feel pain, I don't want to feel grief, I don't want to be sad, I don't want to be lonely, that's the kernel of limitless compassion. When the ego clinging, the dualistic mind's silliness is allowed to settle naturally, that compassion, it's no longer contained just to ourselves. It becomes a deep, deep, profound wish for all sentient beings to be free of suffering, irrespective of what kind of characteristics they have, whether we know them or don't know them, whether they're human or animal, it really doesn't matter. It becomes boundless. So we're here to free ourselves so that we can free others. It's very simple. And if that is enough to motivate us, right, then we need to understand impermanence. And if that does motivate us, but we feel worn down by the suffering of the world, worn down by all the trauma, worn down by how inconstant things are, then joy. We develop joy, we experience joy, and we sit in joy, and then that helps us to practice. Now, I know that right now, because of the way the world is, there's a lot of debate about, what's more important, meditation or activism. And I think I've expressed myself about this a lot. For me, they're equally important because activism is compassion. But activism or compassion without wisdom, which is to understand impermanence, to understand emptiness, right? The true nature of things is limited. It'll do a little good, but it might not do any good. You know, you can't predict. And the only way to really understand the true nature of things, empty and impermanent nature of things, is to sit in meditation. Meditation itself, shamatha itself, proves the truth of impermanence and emptiness, because you see the deep impermanence of thought, the deep impermanence of feelings, the deep impermanence of the self itself, and then the deep impermanence of other. So for me, the two things are very important: compassion, which is activism, and meditation, which is wisdom of emptiness. They can't be separated. But the sitting meditation requires us to have a habit, to have a strategy, you know. So you have to do it every single day. It requires that. So given that it's required to be able to help in the world, we need that wisdom. We need to be sure that we're going to sit. And joy helps. Joy is a helpful tool. Of course, down the track, you won't need it because the joy will arise naturally. But until we get to that point, it's very useful, I think. And even advanced practitioners do use this. There's a really great book. I haven't read it all the way through, but I've read a part of it by Holiness Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and it's called The Book of Joy. And I think it came out a while ago, a long time ago. I have it, but unfortunately I didn't finish it because I had other things that I wanted to read at the time, but I will finish it. And because I read the greater majority of it, and I think I then decided that I would sit with it for a while. And I feel that book, I found that book very moving. So if you have a library, you can get that book through the library. I think it's a good idea. Anyway, so I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions or make comments or say things if you like, and then I will send this. These are Jamyang's notes about the joy practice. So I'll send that out to you. I'll also send out to you a chapter of our book, which is called Resting in Stillness, ironically, or perhaps not ironically at all, which is about joy, how to practice this joy practice using memories. So, and I'll also send out some other resources. So there's from the book by Holiness Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, they identify something called the 8 pillars of joy. So, and there's a poster that goes with that, and I have that poster. So I will send you a PDF of that poster. You can print that out if you like. And then obviously I'm available through Facebook or wherever to answer questions if you don't have them now, they come up later. So I will be quiet now and let you guys ask questions. Just because I don't know how to do this thing, you'll just have to turn on your cameras and start talking. If you have a question. Any questions? Any comments? Any feelings?
Okay.
Is that Beck? No, not
Helen.
Beck. Who's that, sorry?
Helen.
Hi. Did you want to say something?
No, that's what I'm saying. No questions.
Very good. Okay. Does anyone want to say anything, or we want to wind up?
Thank you, Dallas. I missed a big chunk of it, so I'll have to catch the recording because my family's a bit crazy.
Okay. I'm not sure how great the recording will be because I am struggling with this new setup, but hopefully it will be not too annoying, the recording. I think it'll be okay. We'll see. But I'll make it available. I'll send everybody the link to it.
That'd be really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So if we don't have any questions or comments that we want to go through, just do a little bit of a dedication. So this is a particularly Tibetan Buddhist thing. We always start with the intention to be of benefit to sentient beings. And then we always close with a dedication. So there's a few ways to look at this. one way is the mystical kind of view, which is that somehow good intention and meritorious practice creates an energy or a karma or something that merit, they call it merit, it can be shared, right? That's a kind of a metaphysical, mystical thing. For me, dedicating the merit simply reminds me why we're here, why we're doing it. And in that sense, it transforms the mind, which I think is a useful and powerful thing. So we always dedicate the effort or the merit, anything good that came from what we did, to the benefit of sentient beings. And I have my own little dedication thing that I do just because it's easy and it's quite short. So I'll just do that and then we can wind up. And then I'll hang out and chat if you guys want about ordinary things such as the weather. All right. By this effort, may all beings abide in the bliss of the great perfection. Om, 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 om. Okay, Kerry, you can stop the recording now.
Okay. Okay. Hang on.
We're all having
It's okay. I know.